Welcome to January 21st, 2025 work sessions now called to order. First up today is our response to Senator Portman's letter, and I will turn that to Councilwoman Burnett and Councilman Alshire.
Oh, okay. Well,
Share the duty.
as I mentioned last week, just a follow-up of a letter that we wanted to formally provide to the senator addressing his concerns. The body has a draft of a summary of the meetings that took place over the summer, the responses from those stakeholders that we met with. There's a table provided in the draft letter of what the city can do and what our stakeholders could do and how we could collaborate and what we've already been working on. So, Councilman Alshire, we brought this back to the work session because you were not here at the time of this part of the discussion. So if you wanted to add anything to it. On emails.
So, I've looked at it a couple of times. I'd sent my comments via email. I think that we've made most of the changes. I think that the bottom line is this. I don't know what weight our letter of response at this point will have or won't have, partly because, we're a new administration, but I think more importantly because we did exactly what it asked us to do at this table. And I said, and I remember saying that the day after we received it, is that I certainly didn't disagree that it points out those issues that we have in the city as a community, but I think it pointed it out in a way that was divisive and sort of accusatory that, one, this is entirely the city's problem, and two, that that there's that the city has nobody to help but themselves in that process. And the reality is, we met with all of those partnering entities that we typically don't, and came to the realization, I think, as a body who doesn't often interrelate with those parties, the same realization that probably our citizens watching came to, which is, there is a lot of sort of independent entities out there doing all of the lifting of government at many levels. And we are all sort of under that thumb of state and federal directives in that lifting process. And while we try and do them as much as possible independently, so our charge is this, and, the state's attorney's charge is X, and so forth. It gave us an outlet to identify those solutions. Whereas I will be very honest with you, we attended uninvited, so to the meeting at the library, with Paul and the county and state partners. We did not participate in that meeting, but it didn't appear to be a solutions-oriented exercise. I did not attend the second meeting, which was a public meeting. I did watch it, live stream, and again, we didn't participate, but it did not appear to be a solutions-oriented exercise. And I think that the exercise we did and the requisite time that we took to do it was solutions-based. And I think that's exactly the product of this response, is that we heard you, we vetted your concerns with the parties, that those concerns are attributable to, and, we tried to come up with solutions for each of those concerns with those parties. But in this letter, you have to accept, and I think that goes to the county and the delegation and not just Paul, that you have to accept that you guys have to be equally at this table, because the city doesn't sort of exist, in this separate, finite space from the county and those state partners. We exist in that process together. There's a reason that 80% of the social service oriented nonprofits exist within the corporate limits of the city. and to say, well, this is entirely your bag to carry, city, it just it was a little short-sighted. So,
I don't think the letter was decisive, and I think that, it addressed a lot of concerns that residents here have had for a long time. I was at the public library, at the end of the day, it was written when there were shootings last summer here. You got to look at where the context it was written as well. So, I'm glad the last administration looked at some of those things, but I don't disagree with the senator's assessment on some of those either. But at the end of the day, we do have to find a way to work together and move forward with those concerns with this administration. So, and that's what.
And for the draft as it's presented, right now, for me, I looked at the solutions that the city could do and incorporating them into our goals for this administration. So we're able to at least, have some action on the items that we are in control of. And even those that we're not in control of, we still, could look at those solutions and see how we can partner or collaborate with other entities on. So how we go forward, I suggest we look at the draft again, making changes. I know Councilman mentioned he has some edits, incorporate that and send it off. Again, we would like to have a discussion with the delegation again in the county on how they can partner with us to address these social issues together. So that's it.
Anybody else?
I did have to go back and reread Senator Corderman's letter and the letter to Governor Westmore. So I do agree with you, Sean, that it addresses concerns that I feel like so many communities have. And then I did read the draft as well. So it didn't really give a solution. I just felt like it just listed several things that we are struggling with. And without us all coming together, then the solution stays stagnant. So I agree with all when we say it's time to come together. It's time to understand each input is valid, but without coming together, we can't have a valid solution.
Anybody else?
Quick question. How do you guys feel about like a formal response, inviting him in with and verbally giving him the response versus mailing it back and sending it back?
You're not gonna get him in here on a Tuesday right now.
I feel like
gotcha.
we've been talking about this letter for how many meetings now, even before I got sworn in? I think you're beating a dead horse with that. I feel like, it's January of 2025. This letter was sent out last July. Like those things we can identify and work for, but I just don't want us to go around in circles, say, yeah, let's collaborate, work together, and then nothing gets done. I mean, there's things the city can do. Granted, there's things outside of our out of our control with the county and state, but I want to see decisive action, even when it comes to ordinances and things like that, because public safety is a huge issue here. And that was a concern last year in the whole campaign trail. I've knocked on 10,000 houses here, and that was the number one thing people talked to me about. And I know we can do better as a body here, and I feel like we just go around in circles, let's talk together. It's like, well, we've had several discussions on this letter already.
Well, I think speaking from the previous administration, there was definitely no one that said these are not concerns. There was actually many of us that thanked the council or the senator for drafting this letter. Now, we do disagree, some of us, how the delivery of that letter, but no one ever said we don't agree. The thing is that we did get feedback saying that the city has never formally responded, which is why we have the draft letter the way it is. So I'm still in favor of sending at least a formal letter, still inviting the senator or newly appointed delegate to the table, also as county. Also county to come to the table as well. So we could work together to address this together.
I agree with Councilmember Burnett with sending the letter, but also, like she said, we still also need to come together.
Yep.
We can't really formally keep making decisions just over, one drafted letter, so.
And also, discussions took time because we wanted to invite the stakeholders, make sure they had the availability to come on a Tuesday, make sure that everything was done public. And again, election happened and whatnot, and then we had our breaks and all of that. So that's where we are today. So it's better to just formally respond. Let's move forward to working together and addressing these together.
I feel like we were all campaigning when this was coming out also, so, we only heard the, just the only concern. I feel like it was one-sided a lot of times, especially with campaigning, you only really heard,
Yeah,
you only really heard
campaign
about.
made it muddy and made it really messy. instead of just-
I
just
I talk to the
working
residents
together.
here and what their
So-
concerns are, and that's who I care about the most. And,
Absolutely.
this has been ongoing for a long time. I'm not blaming the last administrator. This has been going for years, but, it seems, we have an open, we have one meeting per month where they can do open comments, and it's continuously seems like there's a lot of talking, but not a lot of doing. And I want to see a lot of doing come from this administration. And, and I feel like we can do that. I'm not here to, I think the best days of Hagerstown are ahead of us, but we have a long road ahead, and we have to address this issue head on and just not leave it to the next administration. And, I feel like this has been going for a long time, even before I moved to Hagerstown. So,
Scott, so I heard you say that it would be hard getting him here on Tuesday.
Yeah,
It's not
he's in
imperative that we,
session, yeah.
right,
we
so,
get him
but
on
it's
the
not
agenda.
imperative that we all come together just on a Tuesday, correct?
Yeah, and keep in mind, we're working on our strategic goals for this term, for the 4 years. So we do have time to, again, bring them in and collaborate on our proposed goals and whatnot and how the state could help. So,
And can I just offer something too? I think your approach about putting this within the strategic plan of how to move forward on a more general basis and then allow the body to get specific when it comes to addressing some of these major concerns of which we do have some latitude to be able to do things with. And the letter, instead of the letter regurgitating everything that happened in the last, in those 7 weeks, that acknowledgement be made, that this is where it's going to be addressed moving forward, because it is a new body. And then, because we're gonna have part of the budgetary process that's gonna come up, where this is also gonna be part of it. But just as a way to move forward, this letter had a purpose. That purpose was served. And I think your all's response to it was very well done. And I think now you take that, you move forward with a plan with this body, and put this body's own stamp
yep,
on how things are on how you would want things to look going forward, and allow us to implement it for you.
yep. Sounds good.
I think so too. I think it was right near the end of administration, and I think a response and, to Councilwoman Burnett's point and to Councilman Flaherty's point, us put out a response back and get everybody together and say, okay, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do. So, yeah.
We'll be happy to do that.
So just so I'm understanding, like, this putting out the letter isn't an indication that we're gonna meet with him. It's just, the letter is just, this is what we're doing, this is what we'll do moving forward. Is that how
I
you're
would just,
addressing it?
I would just offer up to you that there's never been a time where the senator, or I can't speak for Matt, but I'm pretty, the delegate, where there's ever been a time they have not been willing to discuss things. It's just a matter that when they're in session,
Right,
they're Monday, they come back late Friday.
okay.
That's
That's
the
what I
only
didn't
thing,
understand.
that's the only kind of caveat to it. I guarantee you, they will not hesitate to sit down and have
Yeah.
a discussion.
I'm not interested in meeting in public session here with Paul, and I'll tell you why. Very basic. They weren't in session when we met with about a dozen different organizations that share in the responsibilities for the things that were pointed out. And Paul made the decision not to attend participate in any of those discussions. So for me, like, there was that opportunity, there's that awareness, and we're just saying in this correspondence, hey, we heard you. We met with all these
Right.
folks that share in the roles of these concerns that you've raised, you know, and here was the outcome of that. So for me, like, there was that, you know, opportunity to occur, and, you know, it didn't.
Okay, makes sense.
I'm happy to draft something for y'all to look at. Other than this, I think this can be condensed down. And then as you move forward through your strategic plan, I think those get addressed in there. The ones you want to address can get
Yeah.
addressed in there.
And I think for me, it's just important for at least the new body to see
Right.
summarized fashion.
Yes.
These three are hamstrung by
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a tough position. Sorry.
Yeah. Anybody else? All right, let's move on.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our strategic plan, and I will turn this over to our city administrator.
So I sent you all out what I thought was pretty accurate synopsis last week of the focus areas that y'all talked about. Now we're going to move on into several others, and we'll do as many as you want to try to get through within an hour. Running a little behind, so I'll leave that up to you to say when to stop. The first one on our sheet on the agenda is promoting business and economic development. Where would you like to go from there, as far as anybody with anything they want, any input they want to provide?
I have one for promoting a business goal or initiative to foster the growth of women-owned businesses by creating initiatives that support their success in the downtown core. And that's based on just looking at the overall number of women-owned businesses we have downtown. Highlighting them. What was that?
Right here.
Highlighting them via Main Street or downtown purview.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And I think we could touch up on that, like we talked about, you know, what can we do to attract more folks to want to come here? It's kind of part of the, you know, economic development, like we talked about the extension of the MARC train and things like that, that the future of Hagerstown to get more people to come here, I think we could look at, you know, not just fixing up and helping businesses already here, but we got to look long-term of, you know, how are we going to grow and, you know, how are we going to better connect folks to higher paying jobs? And how can we attract higher paying jobs here than just warehouses? You know, how can we have a diversified portfolio of different job opportunities and, you know, things to do here? So touch more on that.
I also was thinking, providing mentorships for the business development, also like workshops, because we don't want just businesses to fill a vacant spot. We want them to stay. We want to have longevity. A lot of times business owners, that could be their first business and they're really not understanding how it runs, how it works, what they need to succeed. So I feel like, you know, we need to pour in more into them for their growth and development for the long haul at downtown Hagerstown.
Good one. I'm not going to write. I'm going to watch the video afterwards, so I'm not even going to write any of this stuff down. They're good ones. I want to hear you.
And also building a more close-knit relationship with oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. For like your permits and all that, just totally understanding that process.
Okay, yep.
And I think we talked before how it was, if it wasn't something like very detrimental to open the business, like they could open, but still know that they're, I'm trying to give an example.
We have temporary occupancy permits.
Like that, or like, I'm just using the sprinkler system, for example, like if it's not, you know, detrimental to open the business, but as long as you know that they're doing it. They could still open,
Okay,
if that makes any sense.
okay.
Anybody else?
Now, Councilmember Anderson, you had several specific projects that you had talked to DCED about. Those specific projects, which were very good projects, would be too specific for a goal, but we could make that to where I could take some of these to the mayor, or take them all to the mayor, and set up a time in a work session to go over, and you could talk specifics on, increasing, it's really diversity of business opportunities downtown. It's, green space, the increase of green space opportunities downtown. And then make that a more generalized objective, and then discuss it more specifically within a work session. Does that work?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay, okay.
For me, it would be making sure that prospective businesses understand what grants are offered by the city, as well as the grant process, and making sure that they know that they have access to this, because I have talked to some businesses that did not know.
Okay.
And also, like Councilwoman Bell just said, and we talked about last week, just if somebody is planning to start a business and there is some sort of fix-up in a building, whether they bought or whether they're responsible for, that we as a city make sure that they know completely upfront exactly what it takes to get that business to where it's supposed to be, and not have any surprises at the end.
Okay. Anything else for that one?
Good? All right.
All right. Public safety, next up.
Well, we do have the Public Safety Center as like a,
In the budget?
In the
Yep, as a
budget.
community coalition priority item.
yes, can we add that still
Sure,
for ours?
sure.
Okay,
What is it?
the Public Safety Center. For housing both HPD, HFD, and we're looking into doing a study on the location.
Right, it's a site analysis study, basically,
What, like little
feasibility.
Yes,
in each community type
No,
of
no, no,
thing?
no.
Moving
It would be one building that would house battalion and HPD headquarter operations out of.
Okay. It kind of
Find a
like
place
what's
to
in
do
Bethel
that.
Gardens?
no, but that hub station is on it, I do have that. Yeah,
Okay.
but
Yeah,
separate.
that'd be an
That,
addition.
Yeah.
that
this
kind of
is-
concept though, like where everybody's kind of like
Because
working.
yeah,
like,
right now we have,
hub type of thing?
HFD, battalion headquarters in a building on Eldridge, temporary building on Eldridge. We have HPD in a 150-year-old old train station.
Okay.
This would be a more modern facility.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Speaking of the hub station, though, for me, going back to our previous conversations about reinstating our officer number to then having more of our community resource officers back in play.
Okay? Yeah.
So if we can reinstate that program and revisit the hub station that you, Councilwoman, you mentioned about the Bethel Garden. So we have this hub station, getting it back to being utilized again, but actually having it as a goal to reinstate the program, the Community Resource Officer Program, to again, have a better relationship between police and our residents, to establish that camaraderie that we want to, especially from growing up in areas where there was police presence, but they knew who we were. They knew to make sure that we got home at a decent hour, and also to tell our parents when we wasn't acting right. So, and also to bring back the Take Back initiative, Operation Take Back. That is it was part of like neighborhood cleanups, visiting residents, getting their feedback. We did that last administration, but having it more on a more continuous basis. I know we wanted to reach out to other neighborhoods, like the Locust area at one point.
Right. North Locust.
North
yeah.
Locust. Excuse me.
Yeah, we had staffing challenges with that,
Yeah.
so that, but that's getting better, so.
I think with public safety, you could also mention maybe what ordinances we have in the book that can kind of help with that. What are we enforcing on that? And what is, HPD's role in that? And I think, Neighborhoods First kind of goes with public safety and community engagement a little bit both, and what we can do to be, maybe do better with that program, maybe what we can see, what could be edited or what on that, so.
Okay.
And just kind of maybe looking at some another long-winded, a lot of municipalities that did enact things that work for them, how could that maybe, work for us? I think that's a big thing there, so.
Okay.
Also to have on our goals, more like a staff goal, I guess, to evaluate the potential locations for new fire stations. I know we had plenty of conversations about where to go, at least extend our services, but to bring that back to make sure that we still look into areas that we could have our new station.
We would look for that also as part of the site analysis for this public safety center, to determine whether it would be a better opportunity to just put fire in another location out of downtown, or whether combining the two
That makes sense.
would work as well or better.
I know, I had attended a couple of the Neighborhood First, in Bethel Gardens, and a lot of times the neighborhood just wants to know what is going on. So they are good to have on a regular because it's a way to kind of be able to speak to them, let them know what's going on, what we can, what we can't do. And I had actually told, a couple of the officers that was there, it's important to have a presence in the station. It just, I'm not saying stay in there for your shift, but just walking in and out gives them all an understanding that there's a police presence. So they won't hang out as much right there, because that's really where they hang out. That's just one example of, I was just thinking, holding more forums, awareness, that they understand what is going on from our point of view to theirs, so they just understand.
And also another note there kind of goes with what Councilmember Bell said. I know the county, they rotate some of their meetings in different sections of the county. Why can't we do Bethel Gardens or
Yeah.
hold a meeting as a council? And I'm not saying we have to do it right away or anytime soon, but maybe down the road, go to different sections of town and have a council meeting, or maybe like kind of have an open forum to, a little bit. I just think we should let the constituents and the residents know we do care about them and their issues, and there should be better communication, or at least come to them if they can't come to us. And, that's something to look down the road. It's nothing huge, but.
And to be honest with you, Councilman, it's not that onerous to do.
Okay.
I mean, the only thing we may struggle with would be a live broadcast, but we have done like town hall meetings, that type of thing before. At Elgin Station, at Western Enterprise Fire Hall. That would certainly be something that could happen sooner than later if that's what you all would like to do.
And we revised the rules of procedure to where we can have our meetings somewhere else, right?
Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do it for like a regular session where it's comments already coming, so
Yeah.
that way they could talk to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think you all tried to do that when Mayor Keller started. And we had one scheduled at Elgin Station and COVID hit. That was the first night of COVID. So, first meeting after COVID became a thing.
Yeah, I can't remember what the topic was, but they did hold one in Sumans.
Oh, that was the
Simmons,
town hall.
Town
Like a-
Hall, yeah.
Yeah, like a community, tell us your safety issues.
Yep.
That was actually effective too, I think.
I
Yeah,
thought so.
Town
And
Hall.
it was a
one.
good turnout, too. It was a really good turnout.
All right.
I like that.
Anything else on public safety?
I assume you're including, fire in that?
Absolutely.
So for me, it is the discussion of sending city-paid fire personnel and city-purchased fire equipment outside of the city boundaries. We are the only municipality in the state of Maryland of the very few that are left that have a municipal fire department that send those city citizen or city tax-paying services outside of the municipality without compensation. So Cumberland, Annapolis, Salisbury, all have municipal fire departments, but their county, which receives the benefit of those municipal fire services, offset that cost to the municipality to receive those municipal fire services, because the reality is this, you know, a paid system guarantees, you know, that staffing level of 24/7, that, you know, equipment apparatus, in service, you know, and, you know, there are 26, 27 volunteer fire stations throughout the county. The county is required to provide fire service. Municipalities are not required to provide fire service. So the notion that a fire station that happens to be in Boonesboro, you know, goes outside of Boonesboro, you know, that's because that's a county-delivered service. But the town of Boonesboro doesn't pay to have the Boonesboro Fire Company. The difference here is the city of Hagerstown pays to have the Hagerstown Fire Department. And to put that into simple mathematics, as the average city resident that pays $1,200 for your city tax bill and $1,200 for your county tax bill, roughly about $400 to $500 of your tax bill is going to pay for fire service. If you live outside of the city, your county level of tax obligation to fire service is about $150. So basically, the city resident or city taxpayer sort of, you know, obligates that service outside of the city, but you're paying that. And all of those services have limited capacity. And if you have city-paid fire personnel and city-paid for fire trucks that go and sit in a station as, you know, as backup, if you will, to Smithsburg or Hancock, and you have the need for that service in the city of Hagerstown, then what occurs is that fire service that you pay for through your municipal taxes is no longer here and available when that need arises for what you've paid for to receive. It's just basic mathematics, and you know, we have tax set off, and that tax set off pays, I don't know what the last number is, but I'm gonna say roughly 4 million, 5 million of the 17 or 18 million for police service. So there is some offset there. It's small, but on the fire side, for that 10 million that you pay for fire, there is zero offset. In other words, the county doesn't pay anything as that offset. There is no other municipal jurisdiction of the 4 or 5 left that have municipal fire departments that have that arrangement. And that arrangement has to be rectified, and it has to be rectified in part because on the volunteer side, Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, they decide how the county fire funding is divvied up among the 27 volunteer stations. The 5 stations that exist within the city that are volunteer stations, they only get a fraction of what the total allotment is for all the other volunteer stations around the county. So not only do you pay for the service at a municipal level and send it outside the city, you actually get less for the volunteer component the county pays for to be stationed in your city. That's a reality of the math that has never made sense in my mind. And I think frankly speaking, and I think we experienced that almost briefly when we had the large snowstorm a few years back, of that duplicative personnel availability issue, because we have a lot of paid personnel that are also volunteers at other stations. And we had the huge winter event, you know, and there was this notion that there were a multitude of people available, but it's because multiple stations are counting people twice. Does that make sense? And then and so I just, I think that has to be looked at, you know, and figured out, because the cost equation should not be that way. Now the county would probably point out, well, the city, you know, gets a larger share of county money because, you know, the county funds all these city schools. But there are no city schools. That's a county obligation. So, you know, you can't, or the county funds the county jail, right? That you know, a detention center that takes in so many individuals from the city, therefore the city gets that higher figure. That's a county responsibility. So you can't offset that equation by those other obligations
That we also
that
pay
you're
full tax.
absolutely obligated for, and that the city resident, like every other residence outside the city and every other resident in the other towns in the county, pay the full freight for. You can't argue it both ways. So, you know, to me, that's a big number within our annual budget that has to be rectified.
Anything else? Mayor, what I would offer up is we stop here. And next week, we have a work session before regular. We can finish this up next week, I think. I'm fairly sure of it. And then that way, since we have people here from outside and full room here, we'll just go ahead and stay on the agenda and pick it up next week.
Yep, sounds good.
And then I'll send out and do what I did last week. I'll send you out the two we talked about, for you to look at and make sure it's accurate.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yeah, can you print out that email and copies for that for me? I'll send you a new one for the project.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've got it printed out, so.
Good? Any questions on that?
Thank you.
All right. All right, next up is our preliminary agenda review. I'll try to get through this as quick as possible. I'll have announcements. The rules of procedure are effective on December 17th of 2024. Of course, use of cell phones during meetings is restricted. All correspondence for distribution to elected officials should be provided to the city clerk and should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Our meeting schedule moving forward, Tuesday, February 4th, 2025 is a work session at 4 p.m. Tuesday, February 11th, 2025 is a work session at 4 p.m. Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 is work session at 4 p.m. And Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 is regular session at 7 p.m. There will be appointments to various boards and commissions. The agenda items for citizen comments shall be limited to topics listed for consideration on this agenda and limited to 3 minutes. Also, I just want to point out that you can send email comments via email no later than 5 p.m. on that day, Tuesday on January 28th. Next up is also, Mr. Bachmiller just gave us a notice for a public hearing, land management code amendments. Everybody was given a copy of that. So you should have that in front of you. We'll also look at the minutes for December 3rd, 2024, December 10th, 2024, and December 17th of 2024. All right. Then we'll go through the consent agenda. First up will be engineering, security road sidewalk improvements, Concrete Central, Edgetown, Maryland, of $200,000. Extension of contract for urban tree planting, Advantage Landscaping Construction Incorporated, Hagerstown, Maryland, of $28,216.08. And 2025 and 2026 street tree planting, Botanical Enterprises, Boonesboro, Maryland, of $21,783.92. Next up would be information technology, the ESO Fire RMS Incident Management Annual Software Renewal, ESO Solutions, Dallas, Texas, of $27,365.67. We have police. Number one would be server upgrade for ReefCam Analytics, Spiker Security Services, Hagerstown, Maryland, $23,821. High caliber shields, 4 vests, Blue Ridge Armor, Spindale, North Carolina, at $10,380. The Flock Safety Platform, 6-wing LPRs and 2 stand-alone LPRs, Flock Group Incorporated, Atlanta, Georgia, for $15,000. American Traffic Solutions, annual red light camera charges, American Traffic Solutions, Mesa, Arizona, at $210,000. Qualtrics Idigen, annual license for WMRCL, Blacksburg, Virginia, $13,641.44. A 2009 Ford F-550 Super Duty bucket truck, Ellsworth Electric, Hagerstown, Maryland, $24,950. And Axon Equipment, Axon Enterprise Incorporated, Scottsdale, Arizona, at $107,489.30. Next up is Public Works, Parks and Rec Office HVAC, MS Johnston Company, Hagerstown, Maryland, $11,250. Hager House Visitor Center Improvements, Ion Design LLC, Charlestown, West Virginia, $24,700. And fireworks for Independence Day and Fall Fest, FY25, FY26, FY27. Starfire Corporation, St. Benedict, Pennsylvania, $113,875. Last under that would be utilities. Water, 2025 Ford F-550 with service body, Keystone Ford, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, $131,500. Water, fire alarm replacement, Somerset Fire Alarm and Security, Hagerstown, Maryland, $11,500. Fireline meters, ARK Systems Incorporated, Columbia, Maryland, $22,860. FlexNet Migratable MXUs, LB Water, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, $38,035.17. Under wastewater, would be wastewater treatment plant upgrade design, bidding, and construction phase engineering services, Black and Veatch, Gaithersburg, Maryland, $2,200,825. And Grinder Pumps BMA Sales and Services, DBA Fluid Solutions Incorporated, Suffolk, Virginia, $109,250. No, nothing on unfinished business. No unfinished business. And new business would be approval of a resolution, Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant Agreement with Hagerstown Housing Authority. Approval of a resolution, subrecipient grant agreement for Main Street Startup Grant Program. Approval of resolution, signal maintenance agreement with SHA. Approval of a resolution for user agreement with Cumberland Valley Model Yacht Club. Approval of an amendment to Community Development Block Grant, FY25 Annual Action Plan. Approval of a lease holdover, Department of Labor, and the approval of ERP project vendors. And of course, we've already just went over that with general citizen comments. They're all welcome and limited to 3 minutes, and make sure you can email as well before 5 o'clock. Back to the signal maintenance agreement with SHA. There is a handout that everybody has. All right. And then next week would be, of course, city administrator comments, mayor and council comments, and then we'll adjourn. Next up, the MHAA grant FY 2026 Hager House Visitor Center Video and Virtual Tour. Mr. Eric Knight.
Yeah, good evening. A little background on this. The City of Hagerstown has the Hager House, which is the Jonathan Hager's, one of his houses. It's to be toured. There's a separate building in which we have the Hager House Museum, and this is what this grant's about. We're working on a project in which we received already a $100,000 grant to renovate the museum. It's a project that's going on since probably started in 2018. And so we finally got the grant to move forward and renovate the space. Tonight, I'm looking for permission to pursue another grant, which would be for it's a non-capital grant, which would be for creating a video and virtual tour of the facility, which would be part of our renovation. The renovation would be a capital project where you renovate it. This will be part of the presentation once you're inside. So tonight, all I'm seeking is your permission to pursue this grant. They need a letter of intent by the end of January. And then there's some other deadlines in which there has to be, the submittal for the actual grant. We're looking for $25,000 of grant, and it's a one-to-one match, so it would be $25,000 from the city.
Yes.
Easy.
Make it easy.
Yep,
You're still here.
thank you. No, I'm still here.
Anything else for Eric?
Next up.
Next up?
Yep.
Yeah.
About on this subject.
Okay.
All right, next up is Mr. Eric Dyke again with the Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association Annual Report.
Well, Paul and Dan are walking up here.
Okay.
A little background, since there's a lot of new faces around the table. I'm not sure what you know or don't know, so I'll just throw a little bit of background here. So the Ice and Sports Complex is located in Fairgrounds Park. It's on the east side of the property off Security Road. It was built about 28 years ago. It contains a single sheet of ice. The city maintains the building. We own the building, we own the land. We maintain the roof and the structure and the mechanicals like HVAC and plumbing and that sort of thing. So we own it, but it's actually been operated, or is being operated right now by the Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association. There you go. Thank you. It was close. And the HIAAA. And so they've been operating since 2014. The city has never, in my understanding, has never operated the ice rink. We've only owned it. And so other entities have run it. We currently have a contract with HIAAA that runs through June of this year. And so we're looking to renew that contract. They provide all the general maintenance, janitorial operations within the building. The contract details, just real quick, they pay $36,000 a year annually for rent. The city pays utilities up to $95,000 a year annually. There's a cost sharing portion of this. It's a 75 city, 25% HIAAA. That's on the ice making equipment, the dehumidifying system, which was replaced a couple years ago, and the dasher boards. The intent is to enter into a new 5-year agreement. So we're working on that, and we'll bring that back to council sometime in the coming months. So I have with Paul Sweeney, who's the president of the board, Dan Lavalier, who's the general manager. I'll let them tell you a little bit more about themselves and have a little bit of PowerPoint to look.
Thank you, Eric. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been involved with the ice rink since it opened in really 1997, not as running it, but as a participant. My youngest son started playing when he was 4 years old, so that's kind of got me involved with it. I had no idea how to ice skate or even play hockey, but he loved it, and it turned into, I started playing, and because I knew he was going to start asking me what to do, and I had no idea. So anyway, I've been involved with it at every level, from him learning how to play to he is now coaching out there as well, which is pretty exciting for me. But just, this is Dan. Dan's been our general manager for how long now, Tim?
10 years.
10 years. So he's done a really good job as well. He was a facilities manager for a while, so he knows the ice and the equipment. And the reason why we're here today is to kind of give you an update on how things are going right now, and also that the equipment is all original. It's been there since 97, and it's pretty much getting to the end of its natural lifespan. So what I'm going to do is first give you a little report here, and have a lot of, as Delphi came into, I have a lot of our users here right now, so wanted to show that this place is really exciting. So, all right, so this is our report for this year. Members of Hagerstown Ice Group is, we have some pictures up there, the Kodiaks, we have public skating. Kodiaks are an ice hockey team, a sled hockey team. It's for people that are disabled. We have multiple adult leagues that play out there. We have youth hockey leagues. We have figure skating. It's been used by a lot more people than probably most of you ever really thought. So,
And you also have a college out there. Is Hood?
yeah, Hood College is
also
out there
playing?
right now. They're practicing, playing games as well. They're NCAA, first year they've
Yep.
done that.
Are they the only ones? Just Hood for now?
We also have a club, Shippensburg College team. Shippensburg College
Yeah.
plays out of our rink too.
We have a couple of high school teams. We have the North Stars, Washington County North Stars, which is made up of local high school teams from Williamsport, North High, all the high schools in town. We have one from West Virginia, the Vipers. Bryce is here somewhere. He's the head coach of the Vipers as well. So I put my glasses on to read this to you. So. All right, we're a nonprofit 501c3, where our board is made up of all the user groups. A lot of them are here at this meeting. Each group has a voting member. We have some at-large members, and we were created back in 2014 to manage the rink. So this is just giving you some ideas of how much it's used for public skating. If you look at that chart, you can see in 2021, there was a dip, but that was mainly because of COVID. But consistently, our numbers are pretty good there. That's revenue wise, so we pulled in roughly $140,000 in public skating fees last fiscal year. Give you an idea, these are hockey teams for the adults that use it. We have 7 teams in our upper adult hockey. Right now, the Frederick rink is shut down because of their system basically failed. We have 1 team in our league from Frederick that came here to play, so we normally have 6 teams in that league. We have 8 teams in the middle level division. We have 6 teams in what we call the developmental league. We have an all-female travel hockey team, and then we have, like I told you before, the sled hockey program, Kodiaks. We have over 600 hockey players that are registered throughout the season. Amateur teams, we have representatives from the Hagerstown Youth Hockey Association, HYHA. There are 7, is that number right? There are 7 hockey teams, 2 high school teams, we just touched on that. We have 4 developmental programs, power skating, Learn to Play Hockey, which is a program we co-share with the Washington Capitals. And we're actually one of their probably best producers of kids in that program. Chad, yeah. Okay, and Chad's our hockey director, and how long have we been doing that now, Chad, if you had to say? How long have we been doing the program? Okay, so 10 years. It's been a great relationship with the Capitals, and as a matter of fact, they helped refurnish the outdoor rink.
Right.
They spent like $250,000 on that. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Good year to be a Caps fan.
Yeah. And we also have what's called the Junior Hammerheads and the Hammerheads. The Junior Hammerheads is a developmental program the kids go to after they play in the Learn to Play with the program with the Washington Capitals. And by the way, I didn't tell you, hockey can be an expensive sport, but the Capitals supply them with everything from helmets to skates. So the kids get to keep all that when they're done with the program too. So, and then the next step is to go into what's called the Junior Hammerheads program, and then they progress to either the Hammerheads or the youth travel program after that. So, yeah.
The high school also comes with 2 middle school teams with
Yeah. So well used, well used. There's over 250 youth hockey players, probably, I'd say the number's even higher than that. There's 2 figure skating programs at the rink. Delcy, where are you at? Okay. She's our skating director. She's been doing a fantastic job. She's coordinating things with even the public skates now, and couldn't be happier to have her running that program. But we have the Hagerstown Edge Learn to Skate and the Hagerstown Edge Figure Skating Club, summer camps, summer programs, and winter skate programs, place for pretty much everybody. And this is a little synopsis, with Bellingus, that we analyzed the rank. We meet monthly. We have subcommittees that work and try to put things together. The physical state of the ice and the boards right now is in good condition, but we're going to touch on that a little bit. I just mentioned what Delcy does. She's our new skate director, and she's really promoted the public skate events really well. All bills are current. We purchased a Zamboni back in 2017. It was a $128,000 purchase. We paid for the whole thing, $13,000 roughly at this point. So last spring, we had an emergency closure. Our system hadn't been flushed out in a long time. Cooling system, we had to shut down for a month. We flushed the system out, got everything back up and running, and it's been running really well. These are things that we've done. 2022, we replaced the entire dehumidification system. I rounded it off to 300,000. I think it was more like 280 plus thousand. We had a system shut down in that last March. That was about $45,000 worth of repairs. And we're currently, when I did this, I didn't know it was 26,000. It was 22,000 before that. But again, we share in all those expenses. We pay 25% of all that. And then the cooling system, again, the last couple of times we looked at it, was $1.2 to $2 million. But then I just saw that it's actually 2.7 at this point. So unfortunately, things aren't going down and prices are going the other way. So we're in the process of securing another 5-year contract with the city. We're working with Eric and contractors to make sure our system is going to last as long as it can. We're partnering with local businesses for tournaments. People stay here locally at the hotels, restaurants, eat at the restaurants, and we're in the process of putting a fundraising committee together for the issue or for the repairs of the ice. I mean, the entire system needs to be replaced. We're running on R22, which was what was used back in 1997. You can't get it anymore, and if you do get it, you're paying a premium price for it. Our system, anytime we're having problems, the system is so old, it's almost impossible to find parts for it. And if we do, it have to be made. So we think we're good for probably the next couple of years, but we're not sure that our system's going to last much longer than that. So that's what we're doing. That's where we're at. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions, anyone?
I don't have a question, but I just didn't know all this was going on down there. So it's good to hear that you have a lot going on there.
The one thing I love about the rink is more than half of our users are outside of the city and come to this city to use this facility. And, that's just great for the city.
I have a question for you guys. Have you ever considered like hosting a Christmas or end of the year event at the skating rink for like the kids or the community? Has that ever?
Nothing for the community. We are in the process of creating new events, like we do a special skate show every year. It's something we just started this year, and as we look forward to creating more events, any opportunity like that, it's more than welcome.
Yeah, I attend their most of the board meetings, not all of them, but I try to get to the board meetings. Just got keep a finger on the pulse of what they're doing. They do a great job. Dan is fantastic on the maintenance side. Like I said, everything's coming to end of life out there on the equipment. It's, come up 30 years and it needs replaced. And so that's going to be a decision of mayor and council. We have money in our budget for the next fiscal year, but we are talking at, $2.5 to $3 million to replace ice, and it's getting to that point. Everything that gets replaced out there is incredibly expensive. And as I said, the parts just can't be found anymore. You're using refrigerant, as you well know, that's completely outdated. You can buy it, but you're paying a premium for it. It also means when it does get replaced, we'll get paid a little bit for it too, which will help. But they do a great job. And I mean, when I'm at the board meetings on Thursday nights, the place is packed. And so I've been trying to work with them very closely and help them with their maintenance and repairs. And so things are going very well for them.
Yeah, and I brought a lot of our supporters from the rank here too. I'd like to maybe have them all stand up just so people know, and just maybe just say what groups they represent, so.
Oh, wow, it is a big group.
So, if anybody wants to chime in right now, I mean, like, Jess is with the youth travel program.
Yeah. So we have about 100 members, like children that play from ages 5 to 18 years old. We're a travel program.
I'm Bryce Timberlake with the West Virginia Vipers. So we have a high school and a middle school team. We've got about 60 kids total, and those kids are drawn from Winchester through Greencastle, because we pull in all the teams that don't have a place to play high school. So we pick up all the cats and dogs. We actually had a kid that came all the way from Frostburg that actually played for us. So this is the closest sheet of ice to us. Our closest sheet that we have in West Virginia is Morgantown, so 3.5 hours away.
Are there any like true high school hockey teams in the area?
Yeah, Frederick has quite a few. Most of
Within
the
their high
schools-
school, like Frederick High?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
they have a hybrid team, I think. I forget what the terminology is for it, because the North Stars are like a hybrid team.
Right. I just
And
wonder if there were any, because I
Frederick
can't
had-
remember there being any sheets of ice within a particular school.
No, there's not
But-
that I'm aware of in
okay.
this area. So,
Not down here.
Yeah.
Most of all the high schools are all county-based.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have enough kids to have, from one high school. So ours, we have every high school except for Berkeley County that plays on our team.
I'm Chun Tai, I'm board member representing figure skaters. My daughter and Chelsea. Director. My daughter has been skating there for like over 10 years. So it's a home for us.
I've been with the Bulldogs for 7 years. I have a 14U player and a 10U player.
Bulldogs is my 10U. I'd like to add too, besides the figure skating, besides the hockey, the high school, the travel, it's also the open skate and the opportunities that are available to families in the area just to come and use the ice. It's wonderful.
Year round.
Yeah.
And I'm Jocelyn McCoy, I'm the state director, and I've skated there since I was, a very young adult, and we did things like that, and somehow found myself now in the state director position, and I think the coolest thing is that we have kids who actually have a home, have a space where they're welcomed, and they feel comfortable, and they feel, just supported to grow up to be good humans, good adults. And we do draw people for our lessons from Winchester, from Smithsburg, from Greencastle, Martinsburg, to I also work in Winchester at the hospital there, and I'm always running into somebody in the halls saying, oh yes, I know all about the ice rink up in Hagerstown, that's where we go. They say we can go to Ashburn, but we go there because it's a nice place. People really like the atmosphere there.
Thanks, Aaron Olden, kind of repeat some of the sentiments in between Frederick City and Hagerstown. We chose Hagerstown for my two kids to do skating, myself for the hockey programs. The facilities are great, the community is great. And because of that, we're coming into Hagerstown 3 times a week, checking out new restaurants, doing grocery shopping, and everything else instead of going to Frederick. So it's kind of drawing us closer to Hagerstown.
I'm Sarah. I'm Sarah on the board, but our son plays Bengal Bulldogs. I went to the rink when I was little, and we're excited for the future of the rink. We hope to have our son play hockey when he grows up, and we love our rink.
Chad Ziegler. Also, I've been the hockey director for about 10 years now. I oversee all the youth hockey programs for the rink. We bring in approximately 100 kids each year, brand new kids to the hockey programs, and those kids end up filtering up through junior Hammerheads and the Hammerheads, and then eventually to Hagerstown youth hockey, and then the high school programs as well. And there, as Paul mentioned, we have a really good relationship with the Washington Capitals, which has been huge. They supply free equipment and do a lot of perks through that.
I'm Jen Cleary. I'm on the board of the Bulldogs, but I have 2 kids that play travel hockey. I have a son who plays on the Hammerheads team, and my husband also plays. So our family is at the rink a lot. It's our second home.
So, anybody else? So it's obviously a place that a lot of people like going to, so, and, you know, a lot of, what they didn't mention is a lot of the kids, when they grow up, when they stay in the area, they end up playing in the adult leagues. And our adult leagues, if you looked at our rink, when it opened up in the late 90s, there were 6 teams. Now we have, you know, 3 different leagues, well, more than that, there's probably, you know, well, a huge number of adults playing, and a lot of them are kids that grew up and are playing today, you know, so.
Do you host any small youth tournaments?
Hmm?
Do you host any small youth tournaments?
We haven't for a while, mainly because it's very hard to do that with just one sheet of ice.
Right.
You know,
I was just curious.
most of the arenas that you go to, there's multiple ones, and it's kind of difficult to schedule, like, let's say we work with Frederick, they already have 2 sheets of ice, although they're both down right now, but if we did that, it's not a short drive. Most of them that are done, like in the DC area, the rinks might be 10 minutes apart, so it's not a big deal. But here, I mean, that's in our plans as well. We'd love to have a second sheet of ice. We've got some plans drawn up for it. We'd like to do that. And that would bring even more revenue into the city, because it'd be very easy to host tournaments. That's one thing that we are missing out on. Yeah.
I would just add that, generally speaking, you think about the east end of the city, right? You have the ice rink in the Fairgrounds Park, which has softball fields, soccer fields, right? Trail, skate park, different type of skate, but a skate park. You walk 2 blocks south, you have a 9-hole municipal course, golf course. And if you walk another two blocks south, you'll soon have the field house. So you have all that within a very short distance. So you're not going to be bored over in the side of town. There's plenty of things to do, and the city has done a good job of building that, of building all that together, so. All right?
Yeah, it's great to see you have that much.
Thank you everyone for coming out.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is it, are you gonna leave this?
It's like, hey.
We're happy to stay for the rest.
I love the ice rink. I've been there a few times. Sitting all like, what do we share? This is her. You can?
Me neither. I've never been.
I've never learned. I just get on there and skate.
What do you mean?
You know how to skate. You can
I don't know how to get it.
Do you know how to roller skate?
I know how to roller skate. No, and I just don't think.
No, it's the same.
I promise you.
I promise you it's the
Maybe if
same.
you knew how to inline
I
skate.
promise you it's the same. I promise you, if you can roller skate, you can ice skate. I promise you.
All right.
Roller skate is a little.
Next up, the proposed CDBG annual action plan amendments to utilize program income. It's Margie Joe, Community Development Manager.
Hey, Margie.
So I'd like to request approval of 2 amendments to the FY25 current year CDBG annual action plan.
Late in FY '24, we received unexpected CDBG program income from the payoff of 2 loans. And there was not sufficient time for us then to program this into the current year action plan due to timing around deadline dates for our submission to HUD. But we are able to make amendments afterward through a routine process, which is this. So our staff met with engineering, public works, and finance to determine our best and most expedient use of the additional funds. And we're looking to reprogram $130,000 to alleyway repaving projects and $46,388 to single-family rehabilitation admin. It was determined that the addition of the alleyway projects would provide high impact and timely use, and that allocation of funds to single-family rehab admin would reconcile the city and the CDBG budgets for this line item. The city's budget for this item currently exceeds what we originally allocated in CDBG, but these amounts should ultimately be in alignment with each other. The 30-day public comment period for these amendments ended yesterday, and we received no comments during that time, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Make anything?
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Next up, subrecipient grant agreement for Main Street Startup Grant Program. Chris Simon.
Be Doug instead of Chris.
Oh, Doug. Combination of both.
Great. So here for a recommendation for the Main Street Grant Review Committee approval for under the Main Street Grant Startup Grant Program. So as a reminder, the Main Street Startup Grant Program guidelines and application were approved by Mayor and Council back in August 27th of '24. This program aims to lower the barriers that may prevent entrepreneurs from opening or expanding their small business, increase their chances of success in early stage of operation, and assist with filling currently vacant storefronts in the Main Street district of the downtown. The city was awarded $300,000 under the Project Restore funding from the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, with a maximum award of $50,000 per application. One applicant to date has been approved by the Mayor and City Council, and we're back with 2 subrecipient agreements. The first of which is for 96 Royal Bean and Cream LLC at 96 West Washington Street with an award of up to $50,000. The owner is planning to open a cafe and ice cream shop at the location, importing revolving types of coffee and distribution from Africa. The business will be occupying 880 square feet of commercial space and plans to hold varying community-focused events. Business owner plans to complete basic tenant fit-out and purchase all new equipment within the space. The second would be for Next Chapter Cafe and Bookshop LLC at 141 West Washington Street with the award of up to $50,000. And the owner is planning to open a cafe and bookstore in the former Alsatia Club building, totaling 4,500 square feet in space. The bookstore will offer mostly new books and a gift shop to related items, while the cafe will have a bar, stage, and provide light fare. The business owner plans to install new HVAC in the first floor of the commercial space, update the kitchen with new equipment, creating seating areas, and add fixtures throughout. In your packet, you have the motion, the resolution, the summary of those recommended awards, and a award subrecipient agreement template, which, if you are in agreement tonight, we do have some small modifications to the subrecipient agreement for Exhibit B. The guidelines of the agreement only allow for, they do not allow for in-progress applications. They have to be planned, as well as they have to be started within 3 months and not the 6 that is outlined. So those 2 small modifications will come to you at the next regular session as updates. Any questions?
I don't have anybody got any questions?
Very cool projects.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Stay right here.
All right.
Next up is the review of lease holdover, Department of Labor License and Regulations.
Okay, the Maryland Department of Labor and License Regulations currently leases about 11,000 square feet, a little over 11,000 square feet from the city at 2 to 6 North Potomac Street, which is the Elizabeth Hager Center. Department of General Services has requested an additional holdover request from a lease from January 29th of 2007. So the fifth holdover request is for an additional 6-month term from August 1st, 2024 through January 31st, 2025. And then the new term of that lease would be from February 1st, 2025 through July 31st, 2025. The current rent for the space is $167,100 per year, or $15 a foot. State and city are both acting in good faith and they're current on all rental payments. So in your packet, you'll have the draft motion, the holdover letter drafted, and the state request to extend. What we're looking for is an additional 6 months for that lease to extend.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah. All right, next up, one and only Sean Griffiths, Executive Director of Hagerstown Housing Authority, giving us a Nolan Village update.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello. Thanks for waiting.
Oh, no. It's very informative. So I have a PowerPoint, just give it 1 minute here to kick in.
And then they do have a copy of it.
I have a hard copy.
They all
Yeah.
have.
Oh, you have a hard
Yes,
copy?
yes.
Well, okay. Okay, thank you. So again, thank you all for having me. I believe Councilwoman Burnett mentioned back in December, it'd be nice to have me come in and give an update. So that's why I'm here today about what we're planning to do over in Nolan Village. And I apologize, it's been so long. But the reality is we're just now figuring out what we're going to do to finish up the project. So really the timing actually worked out really good.
Perfect.
So before I dig into some of the details, I just wanted to kind of just give a brief overview about the Housing Authority and also go over a couple of things that we're constantly being asked. Just figured it'd be good, especially for this presentation and then the next one as well. So the Hagerstown Housing Authority, our mission is to provide quality, safe, affordable housing to the residents of Hagerstown. Again, we can only operate in the city. And we also, one of the keys there is really promoting self-sufficiency. We have a whole department that works with our residents to help them better themselves and get out of housing, ultimately is the goal. We were established in 1949 by a vote of mayor and council. We just celebrated our 75th anniversary this past summer. And we managed 1,337 units within 12 communities and also provide subsidies to another 943 residents. When we're fully staffed, we have about 85 employees consisting of 6 different departments. Like I said, we have a resident services department, again, that works directly with our clients, again, promoting self-sufficiency through our FSS program, which is a grant-funded program for staff only. We're able to work with our residents to set up a series of goals to ultimately get them to where they'd like to be, whether that be home ownership, full-time employment, while earning escrows. So as they, as their employment increases, they end up making more. We put money into an escrow account for them. So at the end of the program, when they graduate, they can use that for down payment assistance or whatever the case may be based on, the goals they define for themselves. We manage 9 main wait lists. Currently, there's about 9,200 people on our waiting list for housing. And of those, about 5,800 are actually at a 30% or below area median income. So we have quite a large waiting list.
Wait a minute, what you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What, this is the number for the wait list?
Yes. So those are unique individual families. So like I said, we have 9 wait lists. A lot of people apply for multiple, but there's actually 9,000 unique families on our list. So if you're on 5 different wait lists, we're counting you one time.
So when you say unique families,
So again, because we have multiple wait lists, I could apply to Nolan Village, Frederick Manor,
Right.
all of them. Well, I'm not counting
myself as 4 or 5 individuals. I'm one person in that number.
Gotcha, okay.
I just wanted to kind of show some of the programs we administer. Public housing and the Housing Choice Voucher Program, formerly known as Section 8, are our 2 biggest programs. Over the years, HUD's kind of gotten away from public housing, so our programs have kind of changed. And I'll explain those a little bit more on probably the next slide. So one of the things that create a lot of confusion is what communities do we manage? So I think it's important for you guys to see a list of those communities. And really the bottom number there, the 1177, what that number is what HUD says we are allowed to have in the city of Hagerstown as far as subsidized units. That number is actually 1180. We lost 3 as part of the Nolan Village redevelopment, but that number can never go up, okay? HUD has what they call a fair cloth limit that says Hagerstown can only have 1,177 subsidized units. And as we go through our redevelopment efforts, that number is actually coming down. So McCleary Hill kind of gets away from public housing and goes to project-based voucher program, so it's no longer a public housing community. So in theory, every time we redevelop these communities, that fair cloth limit continues to drop. But I think it's important for you to see that of our redevelopments and our current programs, that number is not increasing.
But, okay, so I just want to make sure I understand, the 1177, we don't necessarily, and I may be thinking of it wrong, want it to drop because then that's less people we can provide for, right? So don't you want it to increase, or am I thinking of it?
Well, the fair cloth limit, that number I'm showing you is based on public housing unit counts. So what HUD did is basically they're saying, we're getting away from public housing. As you go through these redevelopments, we're going to convert those types of units. So there's other ways we can bring different types of affordable housing into Hagerstown, but through public housing, that's no longer really an option.
So eventually, everything will kind of
fit into those other programs.
Okay.
Move into different
So
programs.
eventually, you don't want to have multiple units of public housing. You want all the areas to be redeveloped.
Yeah,
to
the public housing program is really a dated program. And I'll get into that in just a few minutes as to why we're doing this. But really, housing authorities across the country are trying to get away from public housing altogether. It's just, HUD doesn't want to maintain the assets. They want to basically get it out of their portfolio and look for private-public partnerships to kind of manage those. And that's really what Cleary Hill is, and that's also what Gateway Crossing is.
Okay.
Is good examples of that.
So you want to transform all into more of like McCleary Hill,
Gateway Crossing.
Gateway
those kind of-
Crossing and all.
So yeah, as we redevelop, we're keeping those units affordable, but we're just using different paths to keep them affordable.
Okay.
And then also we have 160 non-subsidized units.
And they're units that aren't income-based.
They are, so yeah, HUD or the state do not provide any subsidy to those units. So basically we don't get any help from any outside source to maintain those. Within our HCV program, we have 879 tenant-based vouchers. And again, just the difference between public housing and the Housing Choice Voucher Program is the public housing units in the list before that, which also included some that weren't public housing, the Housing Authority owns and manages those. So we are the property owners of those communities. What the Housing Choice Voucher Program is where we help subsidize private landlords with the rents for those individuals that live in privatized housing. So we don't own the properties, we just provide additional subsidies to those individuals that need help with their rent. And really that brings in over $7 million into Hagerstown in rental assistance from the Housing Authority.
Is that basically Section 8?
Basically Section 8.
Okay.
Yeah. So tenant-based is, again, just our traditional Section 8 program, VASH. We have 59 units allocated for veterans. We partner with the VA in Martinsburg for those referrals. The other one, which we're actually getting ready to sign a new MOU with DSS for, is Ready by 21, and that's for youth aging out of foster care. So going back to public housing, kind of what you were asking a little bit earlier, why are we getting away from it? We really aren't funded at the levels HUD says we should be funded at. We received anywhere from 83 to 89% of what HUD states we should be receiving just in operating subsidy alone. Capital funds just aren't there. There's across the country, and this number is questionable, but about $70 billion in backlog capital needs in public housing across the country. This is why HUD said we just can't afford to maintain them. We can't afford to give housing authorities the money to maintain them. We need to find different tools to maintain that affordable housing program that we have. And really, that's where you look at what HUD calls Rental Assistance Administration Program. It brings together private investors, partnering with developers, housing authorities. And really what it does is it gets those units out of HUD's umbrella, puts them back in the private market, and is able to keep them affordable. And HUD really, again, at that point, has no ties with it other than just providing the Section 8 type of subsidy to those units. And a good example, another good example that I'd like to give is, let's just say, for example, Potomac Towers, okay? The roof needs to be replaced on Potomac Towers, and we just don't have the capital funds to do it. We can't go out into the market, take out a loan to put a roof on Potomac Towers. We can only use HUD funds, which are operating in capital funds. And that's why you're seeing these huge backlogs in capital repairs across the country, is because if it's a public housing unit, we're locked into what HUD gives us, and that's all we can ever use. We're not allowed to go out in the private market and do that unless we redevelop, like the McCleary Hills, the gateways, those kind of things. It gives us more flexibilities. So Nolan Village, why I'm here. Nolan Village was built back in 1972. And prior to me starting with the Housing Authority, which was in 2016, it was noticed that there was definitely a need to make Nolan Village our next project to move forward with and redevelop. Currently, we are sitting at our third phase of redevelopment at Nolan Village, so it will be all said and done after 3 phases. The first phase consisted of 68 townhouses out of McCleary Hill. So that's phase 1 McCleary Hill. That project is complete. 61 of those units came from Nolan Village, replacement units from Nolan Village. 7 are market rate units. Market rate, again, anybody can rent the unit. You can rent the unit, anybody can. It's not subsidized. It's not income-based. That was completed in May of 2021, with about a $21.5 million investment. So there we were able to basically take 61 units from Nolan Village, build brand new out of McCleary Hill. Phase 2 is also complete. That was replacement housing for Nolan Village of 70 units. That went over to phase 2 at McCleary Hill, and 9 market rate units, again, non-subsidized. That was substantially completed in December of 2022 with about a $23.5 million investment. So phase 3, like I said, we just really now figured out what we're doing with the remaining units at Nolan Village. Originally, prior to this, I would say even maybe about 9 months ago, the plan was to do 2 phases on site at Nolan Village. The first being 80 units, substantial rehab with 48 units of new construction. We were pretty much set going down that path with the 2 phase until we had a conversation with HUD, and HUD said, no, let's kind of rethink this concept that you're looking at. The HUD's concern was, and it's a very valid concern, is if your next phase is going to be 80 units of rehab, the chances of you getting another grant through the state of 48 units of new construction is up in the air. It's not guaranteed, and it is competitive funding when you go for the new construction tax credits. They're strongly suggested that what we do is rehab all 116 units. Okay, so rather than doing select demolition with the buildings that are remaining out there, demolishing some, rehabbing in the new construction, they just said rehab all 116. So we went back
that's
to
what's, that 116 units, that's what
still remains at Nolan, and that is what remains of the 250 units that Nolan Village was originally. Okay. So we went back to the state and said, hey, we need to kind of change direction here. HUD's saying, let's just do all 116 units at once. The state said, yeah, we agree. I think that's the best way to go. So the current path, which we have funding guaranteed through the state, is to go in and substantially rehab all 116 remaining units. Currently, we're estimating an investment of about $28 million to do so. So the next slide, I'm going to call this a draft site plan for Nolan Village. If you're all familiar with Nolan Village, courts 1, 2, 4, and 6 have currently been demolished. So if you're looking at the page, the top right corner is court 1, and then the empty land below are the other courts. Currently, we do not have a plan for that vacant land. The buildings that are remaining, again, are going to be substantially rehabbed. And when I say substantial, the only thing that's really going to remain is the brick on the front and the foundation. The inside's going to be totally redesigned. I have a couple slides. I'll show you that in just a minute, just to give you an example of how it's going to work. So really, the footprint in the buildings is really the only thing that's going to stay the same. Everything else is going to be replaced. This has not gone through Planning Commission approval yet. It does need to go in front of the Planning Commission because we are redoing the parking lots and all the sidewalks. Currently, Nolan Village is curved, and there's really no structure to the parking. So we are in the process of getting some final plans together to take for the Planning Commission and get approval of the site plan. If you notice to the bottom, we are going to build a brand new community building. That is part of this next phase. It's going to be very similar to that of what we have over at McCleary Hill. It's going to have office space in there, community room, laundry facility. And the old community building, which just above that on the site plan, is going to remain, will be rehabbed and pretty much handed off to Head Start. They have a need to utilize the whole building, so again, we will be rehabbing that as part of this project and handing that over to Head Start. So again, this is the site plan. The next slide kind of gives you an idea of what the housing units are going to look like. Again, we're keeping the brick. Everything else is going to be new. We are going to put front porches in. And again, I'd like to compare to McCleary Hill. It's going to look very similar. The only difference is where McCleary Hill is stone, this will be brick. The next slide, just to kind of show you, when I say we are doing substantial rehab, the next slide shows the inside of a 3-bedroom unit. The right is what they currently are. The left side is what they will be after the rehab. None of the units in Old Village have lower level baths, half baths, full baths. None of them have it. Especially when you get into the 5 bedrooms, that creates a problem when you've got 1 bathroom in a 5-bedroom unit. So all of our units will have at least a lower level powder room, if not a full bath. Kitchens are swapped around to give them a little bit more space. So again, the footprint is the same, but the inside layouts are going to be totally different. The next slide kind of gives you an idea of the second floor layout. Again, things are shifted around, moved around. So again, different floor. And I believe that's the last slide. Again, we are moving forward. We're anticipating a closing on the 3rd phase in October of this year. Again, the state's on board, HUD's on board. We finally have a clear direction on how to finish up Nolan Village, and this really seems to be the best direction. So I know it was a lot of information. And again, I apologize for taking so long to meet with you guys, but we really didn't have a clear direction until recently.
Well, thank you for joining us and providing an update. I really
Appreciate it.
So in your presentation, and first, I hope my wife is not watching because I've run out of excuses for why 7 people it's okay to share 1 bathroom. So I understand those comments. But there is a multitude of different types of units in terms of bedroom size. So when you go to the 116 here, are they all going to be the same bedroom count in every unit?
So, yeah, so if it's a 2-bedroom unit now, it's going to remain a 2-bedroom unit. To expand on your question, though, and that's something I forgot to mention, and just made me think of it, we are also going to add 6 fully accessible handicap units. So if it's a 2-bedroom unit now, what we're going to do is basically flip it and create stacked units. So where you walk in, to 2 living rooms, one of them's going to go straight upstairs to the non-accessible, and the other one will come straight into the full accessible unit. But again, all the bedroom counts that are currently standing there are going to remain the same. So we're not doing any changing of bedroom sizes.
Well, okay. But there's 116 out of 250 units remaining in Nolan.
Correct.
So there were, there were a number of 2, there were a number of 3, a number of 4, and a number of 5. Of the 116 remaining, do they still have a multitude of those different configurations?
Yes. I don't have the exact breakdown with me, but yes, it is still 2 to 5 bedrooms.
Can you touch on the park a little?
So, and I apologize, currently there's, what's remaining on this site currently, the one playground is in the top left corner of the site plan there. More than likely, we're gonna keep that where it is. We are gonna be putting a new playground down by the new community building, which is down at the bottom of the page there, the brown building. And I also believe Councilman Brownshire in one of my board meetings had mentioned it'd be nice to have a basketball court there as well. The original plans did not allow for a basketball court, but after hearing that and then hearing from others, we more than likely will be putting a basketball court in there as well.
Okay. In terms of the space, because I just walked through the neighborhood, I guess it was last Sunday. It's clear, of how much open space there is now. Will the housing authority, will they retain ownership of that property?
We will.
And then the second question is, when I look at the total unit count in the beginning of your report, will your total unit count of owned subsidized units, the total of 1337, is that the number before you started all of this? Or is there some makeup that you still have left to do in terms of net?
So that number will not be changing. I apologize for scrolling here back and forth. That number will not be changing. But what we did do, as far as the Nolan Village redevelopment, was, like I said a little bit earlier, we lost 3 affordable units out of that project, just the way we had to phase it out. 3 units were lost, but we did gain 16 units of market rate. So our total number of units went up by 16, but they are non-subsidized, non-affordable units, or just market rate, straight market rate units. So to answer your question, that 1337 will not change with the redevelopment that we have remaining for Nolan Village.
So would there be additional city processes that you would have to go through, whether it's a city or a federal process? Let's say you're 1337 now, if you wanted to do, if you wanted to at some point, put 100 units back in, is there a process you have to go through, or you can just simply proceed as any other developer to do?
We would have to proceed as any other developer would. And again,
Is there a cap that the city has set for the housing authority?
So the city, and the housing authority, well before any of our time, we capped out at 1180. So 1180 was what HUD, the housing authority of the city, said we're going to allow in the city of Hagerstown, 1180 affordable units. As we shift through the development, we're changing different subsidies, but just for purposes here, 1180 units of subsidized units, we cannot go over. So if we were going to build another 100 units, they would not be subsidized. There would be no subsidy tied to those units.
Which is why you referenced the 1177, the 3 units lost would be the 1180.
Correct.
I just think it's important for folks to hear that, because I think there's this assumption that is, an unknown amount. In other words, that it's just, but you have processes you have to go through in terms of changing that total figure.
That is correct. And one of the things, that's important to the housing authority is to maintain affordable rents. Okay, so I look at what the rental market is now, and I don't think I could survive going out there and trying to find a 3 or 4 bedroom house to rent. So we try to keep even the market rate units affordable to what we consider affordable, so families can afford those and move into them. There's no subsidy, but we want to keep the rents reasonable.
Do you get all your money directly from HUD, or do you have to go to like congressional delegation every year and request more, or?
So public housing, so really the only money we receive on an annual basis comes directly from HUD. So it's a built-in appropriation, part of transportation, not sure why it falls under that, but every year it's renewed.
And then going back, one more question, this is my last question. On the waiting list, HHA manages 9 site-based waiting lists consisting of 9,252 unique families. Are any of those waiting lists currently closed? And is there a specific process you determine on when to open and close those waiting lists?
So we haven't been closed in our wait list, at least not in the almost 10 years I've been here. We haven't closed it. What we do is once or twice a year, we do what we call a wait list purge, where we send out letters to everybody that's on the list to see if they're still interested. If we don't hear back, we withdraw them. Those numbers will shrink down for a little while.
I'm
Again,
just trying,
just to be transparent, people call up and say, I never got your letter. We will put them back on the list. That's something that happens quite frequently. But
I guess I'm trying to rationalize seeing 1,180 units and seeing a waiting list of 9,200 families, like even you would never, like when I look at the waiting list for housing authorities for other jurisdictions, they clearly have a much smaller waiting list and a proportionally smaller, number of units. I'm just curious, the thought process, in the growth of that and like what that expectation is. If I'm the 10,000th, family on that list of 1,000 units, what is that realistic expectation?
So I would say again, it depends. Our senior, and hopefully nobody from all offices watch if I'm misspeaking here, but our senior buildings typically are less than a year. So if you apply to like a Potomac
Maybe
Towers,
that's what I
Walnut
wanted.
Towers, it's typically less than a year. If you're applying to the C.W. Brooks building, we have a relatively small wait list there. I think it's right around 200 people. Don't quote me on that. More than likely, you're never going to get it. People don't move out. So if you apply to C.W. Brooks, you're going to be waiting a very, very long time. Our family units have a longer turnaround time, anywhere I would say upwards of 5+ years. Then you look at the Gateway Crossings. Gateway Crossing is also income tiered. So not only we have public housing, they're income tiered units. So you may be in a 30% public housing unit up to a 60% public housing unit. So if there's a 1-bedroom, 30% public housing unit that comes available, there's a small little window of criteria that each of those individuals have to fall into to even get housed into one of those units.
And does that criteria dictate whether a family can skip up or down in the line, so to speak?
The word skip, I have a hard time with. So really,
I don't know how.
yeah, I understand. So in other words, you may show it.
Be placed.
Yeah, be placed.
different
Yeah, so somebody
priority.
could show on our, and this is why we really don't share the number. Somebody could be showing on our list as a 10, and 30 may get housed first because we have to find certain income requirements for that particular unit. And to add to that scenario, even with McCleary Hill, we may find that person that's got the right income, but then they also have to have a special kind of disability or some other criteria that they have to get into that unit.
I think to compartmentalize it in my brain, and certainly not to trivialize that process, but it's sort of like when you go in, you're waiting for a table, so to speak, and I go and I have a family of 7, and I'm looking, I'm like, oh, and there's 15 families get seated, but that's because, they don't have a table that meets our needs at that moment available, so the wait may be longer.
Yeah, so not only is it family size based, it's also based on your income, anywhere from 0 to 80%. The units have certain set up size for that, and also, different criteria for our Gateway and McCleary Hill. Are they disabled or are they homeless? They have to meet these other additional criteria, and that's all based on each specific unit within the community.
So you still, excuse me, you still do it on if I remember, it's like a point system. So you get like a point if you're in school, point if you have a job,
If you're local.
yeah, if you're
No.
local, point if you're local, and then it builds you up.
Yeah, so the preference is, a local person's always going to come to the top over somebody not local. So again, those non-local, Brooks residents are going to be sitting on the list for a very long time because even then the locals are going to come to the top of them. So yes, there are preference points assigned to the applicants based on their specific situations.
I feel like the state and federal regulatory process has sort of encouraged through changes in their process to sort of do away with that preference, the geographical preference.
They
right?
have.
Because it's public funding for a
Right.
public process and purpose. So, you know, that notion, you know, of 20 years ago doesn't apply today.
And I mean, going back to the programs and the voucher, you know, like I guess residents would get like an escrow, like not a pot of money, but an escrow amount of money where they would then use it to purchase a home.
So we do have a Section 8 homeownership program.
Okay.
We started it right before COVID hit. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, the housing market went up with it, interest rates went up with it, and unfortunately, in the city of Hagerstown, there really aren't houses that our participants can afford with their vouchers. So the program has not been a success. We're hoping, you know, down the road, as choice, we start having those conversations that maybe we can get into more affordable homeownership opportunities and allow opportunities for those individuals.
Because I brought that up because of your statement before about people don't move out, right? So if there was more opportunities for them to use that escrowed money to move out of these properties into their own house, and then that would free up the inventory to get some people off the wait list. Because I know people that has been in Simmons for Miss Cricket, 40 plus years, you know, but again, opportunities to purchase a home is that gap.
And,
to
and,
get
the-
them out of there.
and those participants that actually graduate from our FSS program do walk away with the escrows as graduates from there. They're not really using their vouchers to buy the home, but they are in a position where they can go out in the private market and buy homes. And I would say about 21% of the FSS graduates actually go out and purchase homes.
It's a good program.
It is a great program.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to be able to do it.
Oh, good. Great.
I had a quick question, sorry. The homes that you have that are at market price, are you guys able to form a program kind of like the MPDU, like the moderately priced units homes? Is it kind of similar to that, or is it just like current market price and it's open to anyone?
It's open to anyone that wants to move in there. We keep a reasonably priced within the market itself. So, I mean, again, I'm just throwing random numbers out there, but just say I can go out in the private market and I'm going to spend $1,600 to rent a 3-bedroom. We try to keep it affordable, maybe $1,100, $900, whatever the case may be, just so people can actually afford to live in a 3-bedroom unit. But again, that's also not receiving any sort of subsidy.
Right.
I hope I answered your question. Sure.
No, you did.
Okay.
You did. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Just a side note, the newsletters is very helpful for
Good.
everybody, I think, in my opinion, for, you know, just to keep everyone updated, especially with the city
I
stuff.
didn't realize you got them, so thank you.
Yeah, it's on Facebook too. so,
Yes. You know,
Yeah.
I think that this conversation this evening with this body speaks to our conversation earlier about, you know, the communication with the senator in terms of, you know, we don't do your stuff every day, but you're a partner in this process of what we all are trying to do. And even some of the details you provided this evening dispel some of those myths of people, you know, coming in, jumping up in line, you know, that there's tons available, that et cetera, you know, all of those sort of things you can add to a tagline on a social media site to sensationalize the conversation, dispels that, you know, because we're able to have this conversation and people can hear that the numbers, I mean, just to hear folks are waiting 5 years is to me a fairly shocking number. You know, and then to hear the dynamics of that mobilization of moving out and units being available, you know, adds some context, you know, to those, the rhetoric and the basis.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys.
I have one more question.
Sure.
What determines the redevelopment of a site? Because I know, like, for example, Nolan's not one of the oldest sites. So why isn't it like you redevelop, correct me if I'm wrong, Simmons is the oldest one, right?
Simmons is the oldest that we currently have in our portfolio, yes. And to answer your question, back in the 50s, when Simmons was built, they were built a lot better than what they were in the 70s. in the 70s, HUD kind of went to this turnkey approach where basically the city and the housing authority say, we need 250 family units. HUD would say, okay, contractor A, go build those 250 units. The housing authority of the city really did not have a lot of oversight in that development, and the quality was just not there. As an example, when we went through Nolan Village with our architect, we took down a sheet of drywall just to see what kind of insulation was in the front of the unit. And I would say probably a 3-foot by 4-foot section on the other side of that drywall was straight siding. No insulation, no plywood, no nothing. So shortcuts were taken. The developments were just not built to last in the 70s.
You said that was y'all did that in Sumans?
Sumans, it was built a lot better.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, they
So
definitely
you're
built a
saying
lot
like
better.
Sumans is one of your better built, even
Better
though it's the
built.
oldest one, it's the
Yeah,
better built.
it's kind of functionally becoming obsolete, and that's why through the choice program, which we're going to talk about next, we're looking to redevelop those. They're not up to date, today's standard.
But they're structurally sound.
They're structurally sound. Thanks.
This is a great segue to the next.
Yeah.
Good job.
I only knew
Worked out
about
good.
Sumans because
The
it was
building people.
the first, like, my grandmother was the first tenant to move into Sumans.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when it was first built. That's why,
That's
that's the only reason why I know it was one of the first ones. But
Mhm.
All right, we'll move right into the Choice Neighborhood Program Update. Have Margie Jo join in. Rachel.
You scared?
Yeah.
So, thank you for having us back. We were here, I think the last time was in August, when we last had an update, and we have been chugging along very well. Things are going great, and I guess I'll let everyone jump right into it.
Yeah, so we have a bunch of slides here, and the reason we have printouts is because we assign a talker to each slide. All right, so what is Choice Neighborhood? Choice Neighborhood is a community-driven transformation plan for high-poverty areas and distressed neighborhoods. In a few minutes, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about why Choice and how it's different from everything else, but this is the program that actually replaced Hope 6. And what Hope 6 is if you look at Gateway Crossing, that's Hope 6. So this is the latest and greatest that HUD's come out with for community and neighborhood revitalizations.
Okay, so we put together some definitions. There can be a lot of ambiguity when discussing the different types of housing, and we've heard some of these terms used interchangeably when maybe they shouldn't be. So for clarity, we put these together, and when we use these terms going forward with regard to choice, this is what we'll be referring to. So with affordable housing, in general, these residents might receive some form of subsidy from the government. With workforce housing, maybe somewhere more in the middle income based. It could be young families, could be people moving from rental situations into homeownership. Market rate housing, self-explanatory, whatever the market will bear. No assistance from the government. Anybody is eligible to live in these units. And perhaps most importantly, the last term, the mixed income housing, which looks to create a diverse and dynamic neighborhood and really is one of the cornerstones of choice.
And just so you guys are aware, that's a term the Housing Authority, those terms, the Housing Authority moving forward uses them, those will be the definitions as well. I think everybody, like you said, had their own definition and it was just misleading.
So Choice Neighborhoods has 3 core goals. First is replacing distressed public housing. Second is elevating priorities for people. And third is focusing on strong, safe, and amenity-rich neighborhoods.
So again, we briefly touched on that Choice Neighborhood is a replacement for the Hope 6 grant. Hope 6 was great for the time. What it really did was it transformed communities, focused on deconcentration of low-income communities, but it focused strictly on the housing aspect. Like Rachel just said, there's 3 key components to choice. HUD realized, yeah, it's great, you can put people into houses, but everything, you have to look at everything else too. What's the neighborhood, you know, the school systems, the healthcare systems, all those things are critical in the community. So they redeveloped Hope 6 and put those 3 core elements into choice. And that's really the main difference, is that it looks at not only the housing, but also the people in the neighborhood.
For Choice Neighborhoods, there's 2 types of grants. First is the planning grant, the one that we're halfway through currently. That's a 2-year planning grant. It's $500,000 award. And then the other grant is the implementation grant. That is an award up to $50 million. On the slide, you'll see how the funding is expected to be split up amongst the 3 different goals. So majority is to housing implementation with 65% of funds. And then 15% would go towards neighborhood implementation and 20% towards people.
And just to elaborate on that one a little bit too, from a housing authority standpoint, I just showed you slides for Nolan Village, and you saw there was about a $28 million investment for that 3rd phase of Nolan Village. Those same types of tax credits will be applied here as well. So if we go to redo our public housing communities that fall within that choice area, we'll be looking at the tax credits in addition to what that $50 million is. So you can see if you leverage those tax credits in addition to this grant, how far that will go.
So where are we now? Well, first, we always like to cheer ourselves a little bit for securing the grant to begin with. It's a very competitive process, and we were awarded alongside other cities such as Philadelphia, Orlando, Kansas City, Albuquerque, Daytona Beach, so we're in very good company. At this point, we're a little more than halfway through, and our next big milestone will be our draft transformation plan, which is due to HUD in March.
Throughout the process, we've been collaborating with lots of different community members. We've had over 60 community partners involved in the process, from nonprofits to the business community, social services, education entities, faith-based groups, and youth and senior services. And we're adding more people every day as we meet them, asking them if they'd like to join in the Choice Neighborhoods work.
Good.
So over the summer and late spring, we did surveys for the community. Over 68% of Hagerstown Housing Authority residents at the 3 sites were surveyed. We had over 285 neighborhood respondents in over 45 businesses. And then through meetings, events, and surveys, we've engaged hundreds of community members, residents. We've had more than 45 meetings at this point, but lots of meetings, task force meetings, in-person events, and we have more to come.
So just some of the findings from not only the community outreach and the surveys, but also from the market study. And all this information is also on our website. So if you want to see a full market study, see the full results of the surveys, it's all out there. But just a couple areas we wanted to touch on, some of the strengths that those we interviewed, as well as data from the market study showed, was a close sense of community. The population was very strong, and they felt comfortable with the growth, where that's going. Some of the weaknesses, Frederick Manor basically felt disconnected from the rest of the city. They kind of felt like they were a little bit of the outskirts, and they really weren't part of the downtown area. Lack of fresh foods downtown, I think we're all aware of that. One of the things we'll see on the next slide is that Goodwill is looking to put a store downtown, which will hopefully help with some of those concerns. Vacant and underutilized commercial buildings. Just feels like there's a lot of that going on and very little new potential for residential communities. Lack of affordable workforce housing. Again, that's at 60 to 120% AMI that we saw on the definition slide, and limited affordable homeownership units. So going through, we really looked at what are some of the opportunities we have available, and really just more affordable housing that fits those other criteria that we're not currently addressing, the workforce housing, the affordable home ownership opportunities, food availability downtown. Again, we're looking at Goodwill to help support that mission. Some of the threats, homeless and crime, were a big concern as a result of those surveys, and lack of sufficient housing options.
So the outline content, this was submitted to HUD in September of '24, and this was a summary of our findings from surveys, from the market research, from the community engagement, and this outline created a vision for the upcoming transformation plan. It was very well received by HUD, and their response is really encouraging as we move forward towards our draft plan. Next steps. Here's what we've done to date. We've had a lot of, as Rachel said, we had a lot of really great community engagement, really robust response to the surveys. So that's incredibly encouraging. And we will continue with future engagement, more meetings, more focus groups, continued engagement with residents and the community, just to put together the best plan and the one that it's driven by residents for residents. Right now, there's a big focus on the early action activity, which is a really exciting part of the Choice Initiative.
So the early action activity is something that's built into the planning grant. Our consultant likes to call it doing while planning. So $100,000 of the planning grant goes towards this project. It's something that comes from community ambassadors, the surveys we've created in our early action committee activity, early action committee. And it's made up of the community ambassadors, our core team, and then some stakeholders in the city, like staff like engineering and public works, to help us get this project realized. So through the surveys and through our meetings with the early action activity committee, the few activities we're looking to do are decorative crosswalks, entry signage into the neighborhoods, and some banners. You'll see in the top right corner, that's actually an example that Annapolis did for their early action activity through Choice. They were awarded a year or two before us and just got to see that realized this past fall, I believe, and winter. So they did a traffic calming project in a busy area of their Choice neighborhoods project area. So they had the traffic calming, the paint, they had big stencils put out so the community members could come out and paint. There are also new benches for people to sit down and some new like street signage as well in their area. For our crosswalk, we're still working on it, drafting plans and designs, but the inspiration that really came from the community ambassadors and the committee were the music notes out front of the Maryland Theater and how those twinkle. So we're looking into doing thermoplastic work at 2 of the crosswalks on either side of the community, as well as the signage and banners.
So the draft plan is where we currently are right now, what we're working on. This is due to HUD mid-March. And really what the draft plan is, it's a very high level look at what we are proposing to do as far as those 3 different target areas. What's the housing plan looking like? Again, high level. What are the people in neighborhood areas looking like, again, at a high level? We plan to come back to this group, hopefully end of February, more likely would probably be early March, if we can get on the agenda, to go over what that draft plan looks like before it's submitted to HUD. We've started working on that now, and we're really trying to secure possible locations for housing and those kind of things, and it's really not finalized yet. But again, probably in March, we'll be coming back to you to have that discussion. We are also looking, it's not finalized yet, we just actually started having that discussion today, about doing a trip maybe to Baltimore, if they'll host us, to look at what they did with one of their Choice communities, to kind of get a better feel for what the possibilities are, what local jurisdictions have done in the area. So we will be reaching back out to you once we get that finalized. You are welcome to join us if you want to. Day bus trip down to Baltimore and take a look at what they did. So it could be a nice field trip. Yeah. And the final plan is due at the end of our second year, which is this coming September. And really what that does is details out more, again, those three categories, housing, people, neighborhood, in more detail. Very similar to what we talked about at Nolan Village, three-phased approach. We will have our phasing plan in place for what we're looking at as far as the redevelopment goes, and just more details. Timelines, timeframes, funding sources, those kind of things will be detailed out in the final plan. Once the final plan is done, submitted to HUD, hopefully that puts us in a good position to apply for the implementation grant. That's really what we.
So, the first question is, so this is the area that this is the area you're required to concentrate on, the area that you've shown in this map. I think the map to me is the most helpful. And then it sounds like the focus is on the neighborhood setting, but is it to focus on improvements to the neighborhood conditions, or is the priority to improve housing within the neighborhood setting?
I'm going to say both, really. It's both. Take a step back. I know we have some new council members here. In order to be successful with choice, you have to have what they call target housing sites. Target housing sites are public housing communities. There's 3 public housing communities that were identified in this area, Parkside, Douglas, and Frederick Manor, that need some sort of work, okay? Whether that be rehabilitation, tore down, new construction, that's what we determine. But then in addition to that, you have to look at what the market study says as far as the housing goes, and that's just lack of those other categories of housing.
So then is the focus to direct resources through these funding opportunities to rehabilitate and improve the existing housing that you own and operate? Or is it to go beyond that and identify additional housing opportunities that you could acquire and diversify the housing with?
That is correct, yes.
The opportunities.
Yes, just as an example, and we've spoken to the owners of this building, so we can say this, is the Moeller Building's an option. That's an option that we are considering, is maybe converting that into housing.
So not necessarily an existing housing building.
Correct.
Just a building that could provide housing if it were redeveloped into that.
That is correct.
How do you
So
think?
as long as it falls inside this neighborhood region.
It does, and there's some certain, I was told, and again, I'm referring to the consultant, that if there was a need to go outside that boundary a little bit, we could do that as well. We just have to show a need and a cause to do so, but ideally, it's intended to stay within the boundary.
Is this a little similar to gentrification that's happened in DC and things like that?
I would
So
say
that,
yes.
I mean, you would go to parts of, my aunt and uncle own a hair salon and, wasn't the best neighborhood 20 years ago. And now there's a Whole Foods across the street and, luxury apartments for $3,000 a month. So,
And that really is the goal. And one of the things I think we all heard out of the surveys was more areas for services. And as we start developing these plans, one of the things we're keeping in mind is that store frontages, those kind of things to bring other businesses into the community, hair salons, those kind of things. What's the need in those communities, and potentially building that into the structure of the housing.
Another thing is it is a right to return replacement for the housing, so there are no tenants who would be kicked out of their housing at all. And also the goal is any new housing developments would be that mixed income, so it would allow people of all different.
So, I mean, to me, I look at the area and I think of the conversations that we've had, and then I think of, where we've directed resources over time. And I'm just maybe in my mind trying to figure out a little bit in terms of sort of do you take the approach of sort of slugging it along and focus on like individual properties that have 1 or 2 units at a time? Or do you focus on like larger properties that have sort of a bigger bang for the buck, if you will, impact right away? And I'll use this example, and I talked about Surrey earlier, but, that was intended to be, a sort of a boutique sort of hotel. I think that when we saw that presentation, like, yeah, this is really cool, but is it really going to happen? It seems like a lot of investment, in that type of place, in a neighborhood. And now it sort of stalled out. And, now in its vacant capacity doesn't look like it did before that effort when it was in its vacant capacity. And so how long, like as hot as the housing market is here, there seems to be a good degree of private investment in buying up single units and couple of units and doing that fix up. I look at places like the old Surrey School or even the old Washington Street School, maybe that's out of the area. And, I don't see the ability for private funds to come in and take on projects that big for a housing component. And so is this an opportunity to look at a place like that and go, okay, there's a big place that makes a big splash in terms of bang for the buck, because you're not going to get, even in a housing market as hot as ours, a private investor to come in with that level of investment to make something of that magnitude happen.
And again, I don't want to speak for everybody that's sitting at the end of the table here, but I think as far as the housing plan goes, we are looking at the larger projects for the housing plan. Now, the one-offs like you were
Meaning the
referring-
larger properties.
The larger properties, but
Okay.
some
I
maybe
think
all
that's
new
helpful to
construction,
understand.
some may be rehab. It just really depends on what projects fit, but the larger scale
And with
projects.
Hope Six, I grew up, in Concord in those areas, and so when Hope Six came in, it really looked at like, blocks of single houses. So I'm just curious, when I look at this map and hear this, are you looking at like blocks of single properties, or are you looking at like big places to take on?
We're looking at big places to take on with the housing. Then if you notice too, there was money set aside for neighborhood. But I think those neighborhood funds are really where you may see those one-off kind of things happen. So in other words, you have a homeowner that needs some facade updates, new roofs, those kind of things. That's where those neighborhood funds come in, maybe as those one-offs. But as far as the housing plan, which is 65% of the grant, and also all the tax credits that we'll leverage with that, are the larger scale project, the bigger buildings, the bigger communities, those kind of things, not the one-offs. Hopefully that should make sense.
A quick question, are you guys familiar with the Ivy City Small Area Plan in DC?
What was that again?
It's called the Ivy City. It's like a
I'm
small area city plan, no?
No.
Okay. Just a question, sorry.
Well, I guess in my mind, I'm just trying to think of what those places are. I mean, we can sit here at this table and you can just about think.
Like U Street area of DC, maybe like, because that's had a lot of work with that, like with gentrification and, now there's, murals everywhere and it's on the crosswalks there and like where my aunt and uncle, there's hair salons at. So I've seen that area tremendously change in 20 years. And now, the only problem with that is, it's not affordable now. So
Right.
now that everybody's bought up all the houses and fixed them up, so and they sell them for $1 million. So.
Well, I think with this, the idea is not to create an environment where the affordable housing gets pushed out. It's more to bring more of the mixed income in to help
Yeah.
develop and uplift an area.
I think to me, in my mind, a good example of here that folks don't often see is the large building behind City Park. That, I don't know what it's called. I know it's probably-
Block oil building? Or the one that's already in a park?
Yeah, the one's the apartment building.
Okay.
Which has fairly decent, apartments. I remember long
Yeah, the
ago
trees.
looking at it, and
Yeah.
we don't really think of it.
Nice.
But the reality is, if somebody wouldn't have taken that, it'd been very difficult to like
Right.
make a project like that go. And I look at like places like Surrey or the old West Washington Street School, or God forbid we talk about the Dagmar, but places like that are of the size and magnitude where it isn't a part where you're buying individual places, and pricing them all out of the market, but you're buying the bigger places that provide a decent rental capacity, where you're just bringing that mixed income into the area. Because to try and compete with the private market right now, single house, like rehab and stuff, I think that would be difficult.
I agree.
Anyway.
Anything else?
No, I just want to just thank you guys for continuing to engage the community to get their feedback on this. I think that this program is great and it's large, so it's really important to hear from those who live in the area, and that will help with, just civic pride in it, like being part of the process and then seeing eventually what it looks like. I think it'll just boost the overall like aesthetics of the community and also like their well-being. Of like, you know what, I was part of that meeting and I suggested this and that, and I painted that part of the street. So just thank you for that.
If there's a thought that this body has about something that maybe we're not thinking of, let us know, please. I mean, be happy to take that into consideration.
I just think it would be exciting to identify the big places, you know what I mean, and go, okay, these are the big places like the Moeller, like Bagmar, like Bly, like Surrey, like Washington, like those places that are big that you know, wow, we could make this happen because there's the public, part of that funding to make it happen that we don't have.
Right.
Jonathan Place ever been part of like the discussion, that building, the historic Jonathan Place in itself?
They
Speaking of
will
big
be in the
projects.
community, but as far as, we haven't had a discussion with them about doing any sort of rehabilitation right now. Definitely a conversation we can have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It
I
is
think right now,
historic.
large scale buildings right now, I think the Mueller building is really the only one we're looking at this point.
It is large.
So I think what you're looking at is very, very similar to Choice,
Right.
but only done through DC's government.
That's
It
why I
looks
asked if
very,
they were
it
familiar
looks
with
very
that
similar.
program.
So like Choice on a local level?
It's called the Ivy City Small Area Plan. It focuses on minority neighborhoods in the New York Avenue area, DC. Basically doing almost the exact same thing. But it looks like it's run out of the planning offices of DC, then directed from HUD through the Choice program. Looks like DC is funding this internally versus HUD grants. But it looks really, really close.
Yes.
We'll look into it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you guys. I just tried to and it said the file was too large, so I'll send it. I'll send it over.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So much.
I'm laughing because that's in my project plan, is what you're talking about. That's in the, I sent it to you guys now.
Okay. Send in the city administrator.
All right, just a couple things. Looking forward to the day in Annapolis tomorrow with the Chamber and Greater Hagerstown Leadership, Washington County. The governor's budget was released last week. We had one good thing come out and one, I would say unfortunate thing come out. The good thing is that funding for the I-81 study was restored to the budget in full, so that's a good thing. The bad thing is that the Enterprise Zone program is being sunsetted by the state, which means state subsidies will stop related to the Enterprise Zone program. We're going to be down there, me, Jill, well, several of you, me, Jill, Margie, I think, Rachel's down there. I've got some time with Delegate Schindler at 2:30 tomorrow. Everyone's invited. He just confirmed that. I got to find a place to meet. And we need to talk some more about this. This would be a significant hurt to the city, to the counties, anyone that deals, especially how we've been able to utilize the Enterprise Zone program to attract businesses, North Point, Kerwood. We don't get many financial advantages where we are here between Pennsylvania and West Virginia. This was one significant one, and if this gets taken away, it's going to be a struggle. So we're going to need to focus not only tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, you're going to find there's going to be many, many delegates and senators at the reception tomorrow night for Washington County. So we'll have to try to hunt some people down and maybe have some conversations, but it's going to be an ongoing effort through the budget negotiation process. So I'll work on it through MML, and I think we'll all have to, make some contacts to try to get Enterprise Zone taken out. It's been threatened several times in the past, never got this far. So when it gets this far, it gets a little scary. So we want to try to turn some minds around. So other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Councilman Flaherty.
Closing comments?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and it just shows me how far we've come. And the inauguration was on, and whether you loved it or hated it, I feel like at the end of the day, we can honor his legacy by getting out of your house, talking to your neighbors, and doing things here. So, I think if anything, there's still a lot of work to be done, no matter who you vote for. But any of that, that's all I have.
Councilwoman Burnett.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilman Alshire. Councilwoman Bell. Councilwoman Anderson.
I didn't have it.
Okay. I was able to attend this morning the Main Street of Hagerstown, and it was good looking at the concerns of businesses downtown and seeing how we could help as a city. And I as well am looking forward to day in Annapolis tomorrow, Washington County delegation. It's going to be fun. So looking forward to meeting everybody down. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions about anything this evening? Okay, we are adjourned.
Hello and welcome to Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker. I'm joined by Hagerstown Housing Authority Executive Director Sean Griffith, along with Margie Joe, who is the City of Hagerstown Community Development Manager, and Planning and Outreach Coordinator Rachel Paul. Quite a contingent here, but as cold as it's been, I think that's what this is all about, just going to build up a lot of body heat here in the room. I know there's been a lot of discussion already here this evening. Sean, you had a couple of items on the agenda that you really pretty much headed up. The first one being the transformation, so to speak, of Nolan Village. I'd like to start with that just because Nolan Village is something that people who have lived in Hagerstown for a period of time certainly have some semblance of an idea about. They know where it's located. They know what it's been over a number of years. And things have really changed with Nolan Village at this point. So kind of take us through that, just give us kind of a high level sort of tour of what's transpired at this point.
Sure. So probably back in 2016, we were really starting to make ground on the redevelopment of Nolan Village. It's a three-phased approach. The first two phases were off-site, brand new construction over at McCleary Hill. Both those phases were completed. We were able to demolish courts 1, 2, 4, and 6 at Nolan Village. So that's just green space now, open land. The third phase we're moving forward with now, which is substantial rehab of the remaining 116 units that are in Nolan Village. So if you drive through there today, the buildings you see standing are going to be rehabbed. The floor plans are going to be totally different. The look of the community is going to be different. There will be a brand new community building and additional amenities within the community once it's completed. We're looking to have that started in October, and it's probably going to be about a 2-year construction period.
And that altogether is about a $73 million project with all three phases?
Yeah, it's approximately about that with all three phases, yes.
And the name will be Martin Heights?
Martin Heights will be the new name of the development once it's completed, yes.
Okay. And in terms of people who were in Nolan Village initially and then moved over to McCleary Hill, is there an opportunity for any of them to come back to Nolan Village, or how does all of that
So
function?
there is the opportunity to come back if they want to,
Okay.
absolutely. I think the residents that are out there are happy.
Yeah.
They're enjoying the community, so I probably won't see that happening.
Okay.
But those individuals that are currently living at Nolan Village have the right to stay in Nolan Village as well, and we foresee all of them staying.
So let's move on to the Choice Neighborhoods program update, something that is very exciting. We've talked about this a couple of times. What a difference about 5 months has made since the last time we discussed this. And altogether, I guess, about 16 months of the project at this point? Something like that. So, it's a transformative project. Certainly that word has been thrown around. The planning grant is something that the city of Hagerstown, in conjunction with Hagerstown Housing Authority, was able to obtain. Margie, take us through this process. I know we talked about it a little bit last time with the surveys and all of the community input, and really trying in every possible way to get people to provide information, because they're the ones who ultimately are going to be living through this transformative project, which is really so much more about the people than it is the housing aspect. I mean, they go hand in hand, but at the same time, this is one where the people are really put at the forefront.
So we did have a really robust response to the surveys, which was incredibly encouraging, because I know a lot of times people maybe view it a little bit cynically, like, yeah, okay, I'll fill this out, we'll see what happens. But no, we really got a lot of engagement, a lot of good feedback. And just with the other folks that are doing the market research, they came to the area, they toured all around Hagerstown, the housing sites, potential housing sites, and just to have all that information together. And as it's developing, and just to put it together, okay, what do the people want? What will the city support in terms of space and housing? Right. But yeah, to have it come together in the outline with content that we did, that vision is starting to develop, and then now moving along and looking at other potential housing sites and housing development, that's been really exciting too. So it seems like it just kind of like rolled along, just it's sort of lumbering, but then when you look at where we
Yeah.
are now,
Yeah.
it's actually, there's a lot that has happened and a lot that's really formed and come together.
A lot of tangibility
Yeah.
that is starting to come together, as you said. And I think Sean touched on it a little bit when he talked about the Nolan Village project and the pride. Has it surprised you in any way? Has it encouraged you, the pride that has come through from these individuals that you've engaged with, and you know what they've said about where they live and how they feel about this project?
I don't know about surprised. Certainly just like really, I don't know, pleasantly encouraged
Yes,
by how many people say, yes, I would like to come back.
Right.
Once these spaces are rehabbed or the different construction. But yeah, surprised, I don't know, but just, I don't know. It's just been, all in all, it has just been such a continually positive and motivating experience.
What's it been like, Rachel, with the engagement aspect of this and everything that you've done throughout the course of this timeline to get to this juncture?
It's been a lot of fun, honestly, getting to meet so many new community partners, residents from the Housing Authority, getting to work closely with people who are excited about the project and the grant and really want to make a difference and see their opinions and ideas and concerns come to life throughout the process.
And to me, this is really the epitome of the discussions that mayor and council had after the letter came out from Senator Quarterman, because talking about partnership and things that the city can't do by itself, and certainly Sean brought this whole potential to light with the grant and said, hey, you want to partner with the Hagerstown Housing Authority? How do we make this happen? So in order, for this to happen, all of that, the stars had to align, and then to be able to procure this particular planning grant from HUD took an awful lot of work. So what do you see going forward here? Because there's still, this is just one part of this process, and you kind of get over this hurdle to get to the next one. So, looking ahead here, what are you most looking forward to at this point?
Currently, I'm most looking forward to seeing the early action activity get realized. I know that's going to be, that is like our tangible physical evidence of all the work we've been doing for the last 2 years. Oh, it will be 2 years at that point. But I am also excited for the future. Obviously, implementation grant, hopefully at some point in the future. That's all going to be contingent on federal funding and those kinds of things, the competition. But I think we are in a really good position with HUD and have been working really well with them. So,
Sean, is this? No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh, I was going to say, Sean, is this, in your mind, when you looked at this and saw this opportunity was available, is this the way that you hoped that it would play out?
It's actually a lot better than what I had.
Okay.
It's
Good.
taken a life of its own, and like they've said, it's really neat to hear everybody's feedback and see this thing evolve into kind of its own thing, which is really what it is.
I wanted to ask you a couple of, I guess, technical questions here to some degree, and maybe it's just for my own curiosity, but a couple of things that were mentioned during the council meeting, and I think they bear maybe getting, a little bit of your input into exactly the way that the Hagerstown Housing Authority looks at these things, because I know you had some definitions for some things that were included in your presentation, but just for clarification's sake, so Section 8 is something that's really not mentioned that much anymore. That's not really a term that I guess HUD puts out there, and is that something that the Housing Authority still talks about or not? Has that terminology changed? Has the philosophy changed?
I would say Yes to all. The term Section 8 is actually the funding source for the program.
Okay.
So it's like a capital fund grant. It's a Section 8 grant.
All right.
The technical name for the program is the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Okay, okay. And that, anything that has to do with Section 8 or the voucher program has to do with funding going to a private landlord? It's not something, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a property that the Hagerstown Housing Authority would be operating. Is that correct?
That is correct. So basically we give what we call a voucher to a tenant or an
Okay.
applicant, and they can go out into the private market with any landlord that takes it and basically occupy that unit. We help offset the difference in rent that the tenants can't afford.
Okay. And affordable housing. I know I've asked you this question before. I think every time I see you, I'm like, well, what's the definition of affordable housing? And you certainly laid that out in the presentation. But at its core, I mean, that is government-owned and operated properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the actual definition of affordable is a subsidized property.
Okay.
To where there's some sort of federal subsidy going
Right.
into it to help offset the rent.
Okay. And I guess maybe I'd done a little too much reading on all of this, because I just wanted to be prepared for it. And I don't want to confuse people and get too deep into things, but there's a term called inclusionary zoning. And I was looking at that, and it enables municipalities to construct new affordable housing without taxpayer subsidies. And, sometimes that can create, I guess, what you might call an irony in a way, because things could go in the other direction. It sort of proves counterintuitive based on location. But obviously, when it comes to what is being done here with this particular project, location is key because HUD says, yes, you can do it within this footprint. So this is one of those projects where all of the I's have been dotted, all the T's have been crossed at this point. So I guess my question is, going forward now, as you look at getting through the planning phase of this, the next one is a real big one. So only 14 cities in the United States qualified for what the city of Hagerstown is doing right now. What happens to get to the next phase of this project? Is there a pot of money there? Is there only so much money available? I guess what would help ensure that the city of Hagerstown gets to the next step in this process?
I say what we're doing right now is a really big step.
Okay.
They're going to want to see a good plan and a clear direction of where we're trying to go with this project.
Yeah.
The other thing really is you got to look at the federal government. How are they going to fund it?
Well, yeah.
And that's the second major aspect of it is, again, a $40-50 billion grant can only go so far when you're looking at $200 to $300 million, maybe if we're lucky, and that's what's funded through the federal government.
Is there any worry, concern, or anything to that effect now that there is a new administration in place?
Well, historically, I think the Choice Neighborhood Program has really proven itself. And I think it's not only brought in public, but private dollars as well to communities. And I think the federal government sees that. And I'm hopeful that they really can truly understand, which I think they do, what this has done to communities like Hagerstown.
Margie, where do we go from here on this, in this project? Again, I know there is a deadline, so to speak, or a finish line, maybe we should call it. So kind of take us through, what happens from here.
I think now is we're starting to see more of the vision develop. So we've had our consultants have joined us here in Hagerstown towards some of the different potentially available sites, created conceptual housing plans for those, and just seeing their vision and then presenting to mayor and council this evening. And then, start, especially with the new administration, but starting to hear some of that vision come towards us as well. I think this is where it gets really exciting.
everything's a little nebulous right now because just of, who knows what properties might be available, who knows what private developers might come in and do in the meantime. But just to see everybody kind of coming together with that vision and knowing the potential that Choice has to really uplift the community, I think that's kind of the excitement and the driving force right now.
And what's your enthusiasm level, Rachel, as it relates to the potential for other properties? Because I think there were certain ones that were identified in the first place, but then as was discussed at the meeting tonight, that doesn't mean that those are the only ones.
Yeah, I think everybody in the city is excited for an adaptive reuse project, have a building that has, been dead for a little while, get some life breathed into it. So I think everybody's really excited to see the ways that we can play with what's existing in Hagerstown and make it something that does a lot more than it does right now.
Yeah, because that's something everybody sees all the time. One of the things they like to point out, well, here's a building. What are you going to do with this? What's going to happen with this? So, I mean, there is so much excitement. And again, the potential exists for so much more. And again, I wish all of you the best of luck here as we continue in this project. And it's great to get an update. As I said, I mean, this is the third time we've talked about it. And every time just feel like, there's more and more, as we said, tangibility to this. So very, very cool. Thanks for your time this evening. I'm going to send you out into the cold now. But I don't control that. I don't control that. But again, thanks for being here, and thanks to all of you for watching. And we'll continue to keep an eye on this, and I'm sure we'll have another update coming for you here in just a couple of months. So stay tuned for that. For now, that's it for Council Wrap. That is a wrap. I'll see you next time.